All right, everyone. Today I've got a very special guest. Patrick is going to be joining me. He's going to be talking about his own search journey, about the business that he bought, and in particular about buying within a specialized business field when you don't happen to be a practitioner. Stay tuned. I'm David C. Barnett, and you're tuned in to Small Business and Deal Making, the podcast, YouTube channel, and blog where I talk about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium-sized businesses while controlling risk. So if you're looking to take control of your future through buying a business one day, or if you already own a business and you're looking to grow or exit, you've come to the right place. I talk about interesting things, I talk to interesting people, and I answer your questions every week right here. So be sure to hit like and be sure to hit subscribe, and let's get to it. Awesome. Patrick, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Happy Friday. How are you?
Yeah, happy Friday to you too. I'm looking forward. It's another week under our belt, the first full work week of 2023.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? It means, well, people are going to have to file tax returns and something like that pretty soon.
Yes.
Well, why don't we start off, Patrick, by introducing you to everyone who's watching? Why don't you give us a little background on yourself, and then we'll talk about your search journey and then ultimately your business and what you guys do.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate what you do. And I was just telling a friend this week who wants to buy a business that he should join your group and do your course. So you put out a ton of great info. My quick bio and story, grew up in Colorado, did undergrad and MBA out there. I spent 7 years at a digital marketing company in a sales leadership role. And then I spent 3 years doing small business advising and coaching. And almost all of our new clients had terrible bookkeeping, and I was trying to coach them and do advising, and I was always referring out the bookkeeping, and I saw how transformational that was. And so I went and looked for an accounting firm to buy. And,
so hang on. I want to touch back on that, because you said that when you started working with a lot of people, their bookkeeping was not in a good state. Can you describe what you were looking for and how it didn't serve the needs of the business when you were trying to help them?
You bet. So a lot of these clients were, web design firms, property management, remodelers, basically service-based Main Street businesses with, 3 to 10 employees, and they'd grown, they'd done okay, but we were trying to do cash flow planning, business planning, look at what their true profit margin is. And you just can't do that when there's bad bookkeeping being done. So what bad bookkeeping looked like was either they were trying to do it themselves and not keeping up with it, or they're just doing their taxes once a year and there wasn't any sort of regular monthly closing of the books.
The biggest expense line was something called miscellaneous.
Yeah, ask my accountant. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that kind of thing before, especially when you're trying to break down, sort of the parts of the business and how they make money, and you ask general questions like, what's your target markup, and then they'll tell you, but then you say, and do you achieve it? And then they have no way of knowing.
Right.
They do. Yeah. Because they haven't got their books set up properly.
Yes, totally. We sell $8,000 websites. Great. What do you think you make on an $8,000 website? Oh, 50%. Okay, let's verify that. And then it's, you're not able to do that. But once you do have that data and you can actually verify it and learn to understand the numbers and know the difference between, gross profit and net profit, it's a game changer, right?
Yeah, totally. We've got people already piling in. We've got Kevin, who's joining us from Lakeland, Florida. Hey, Kevin, how are you today? Nuvi's in the house and says we can get started because he's in here, and wishes us a good morning. And Tam as well wishes us a good morning. Good to see you too. So you saw the value in how having the better bookkeeping and better accounting was helping these small business owners. And you decided, when you wanted to go out and become an owner yourself, you decided you would go looking for a business where you could actually be the provider of this service. Is that right?
Right. I'd heard about people that go and buy small businesses, and, initially I was like, okay, I think B2B service is my lane, just given my background and my skill set. And the more I looked at accounting and bookkeeping, the more excited I got about the opportunity. So took me 10 or 11 months to finally close. And I closed at the end of 2021. So December 31st, 2021. So a little over a year ago.
Okay. So you just finished your first, you just finished with your first full year.
Yes. First full year. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. And so here's the big question. While you were, familiar with business and familiar with small business, here you are buying a bookkeeping and accounting and tax planning firm, but you're not an accountant by trade. So how was that perceived when you went into the market, when, the brokers you spoke with, the sellers you spoke with? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It was a lot tougher than I thought to find a quality deal and to be taken seriously. So at least in the accounting space, there's a few brokerages that specialize in accounting, and they just wouldn't put me in front of their sellers. They're like, "Oh, you're not a CPA? Like, go partner with a CPA and come back." And as much as I tried to explain to them, I have an MBA, I've taken accounting courses, I work in QuickBooks every day right now. Here's kind of my plan. They were fairly closed-minded. So, and the other thing I'll say is, like, there's just a lot of bad stuff for sale that you should buy, the accounting firms that are for sale. So, I really had to look hard. I ended up doing my own proprietary outreach and search to find opportunities, and ultimately the one that I closed. But I'd say it was worth it.
Do you think that part of the pushback, part of the reason why they weren't taking you seriously is simply because they haven't seen many instances of non-CPAs owning these kinds of businesses? Or do you think they really thought that if you weren't, one of the doers, that you wouldn't be capable somehow of owning or running or understanding what was going on in the business?
Yeah, I think those are the two big things. They hadn't seen it before, and they just thought, this wouldn't work. Like, clients would leave, or retention wouldn't be good, or who's going to do the tax work if it's not you? So,
okay. And so, and like, that's interesting. So were you looking at fairly small firms, or like how big of a business?
When I initially started looking, I was looking for 100% bookkeeping, and I was trying to get something, between like a $750K to $2 million purchase price. These typically trade for like 1 times annual revenue, right? But there weren't many pure bookkeeping companies that are sizable. Like, most are like 300-400K,
right?
And yeah, so there weren't many available, and so I started to get more open-minded to maybe some tax being included as well. And then the deals got bigger, and I found, some more, I think, more sizable or established firms that would be ready to buy.
It's interesting. It's the analogy. If I try to put myself in the position that those other people were in, making those statements, it's almost like saying that you need to be a chef to own a restaurant, or you need to be an auto mechanic to own an auto repair business. And
Right.
we know that plenty of those businesses are not owned by those trade specialists, right? Yeah. So in the end, you opened your mind to other different types of firms. What did Appletree look like when you finally found it and did your acquisition? Was it a lot of bookkeeping, or was it doing all kinds of different sort of accounting and tax planning services already?
It felt very different from the start. So I'll give you a long answer here. There was a firm doing about 800,000 that was pure bookkeeping that I almost closed on, and died at the 11th hour. So then I kind of had to restart the engine, which everyone says not to do. Like, you got to keep looking. So I was reaching out to more firms, and Steve, the previous owner of Appletree, was like, "I'm going to talk. Let's talk." And right away he told me, like, we have a very structured offering. We have a very structured team. Everyone is on like a subscription plan for bookkeeping and tax, which I love to hear. And he said, we have tax managers that kind of handle the relationship, and I'm not involved with that many clients anymore. And then the other thing that was great is he could send me financials right away, and I could see really good, clean financials for 3 years, which was like, it was kind of scary.
Hang on. You mean the other accounting and bookkeeping firms weren't able to send you financials right away?
All the time. They're like, I'm my own worst client, they're like, I serve everybody else before I get to my own books. But
I can't say I'm surprised, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a few more people piling in here. We got Ottawa's represented in the house. We got Los Angeles and Utah as well. Good to see everyone popping in. So when you first came upon Appletree, it sounds like the owner had already done a lot of work towards productizing the service and making the offering palatable from an ownership point of view. In that there was this recurring revenue that was coming in. Tell me about the footprint of the business. It was fairly regional, wasn't it, when you acquired
Yes.
it?
Yeah. So I was based in New Hampshire, and I'd say 80-90% of the clients were like New Hampshire, a sprinkling in like Massachusetts and Maine. And he'd done a really good job of building the firm, and he was in an association for years called PASBA that really trains people on like how to productize it, how to price, how to get yourself out of the day-to-day. And he had done it really well. He wanted to know who he was going to sell to before he went into the next tax season. Like I talked to him in September, and he's like, okay, I've got other potential offers. Like, I want to know like who's going to buy this thing before I go into another tax season.
Yeah. Now, most accountants that I know, will talk about how they have a busy season, obviously around filing deadlines and whatnot. And it really gives that seasonal ebb and flow to the business. Are you able to smooth that out at all with what you've got at Appletree?
Yes, we still have it, but it's much smoother than other firms because we don't take individual tax returns, and because we have their bookkeeping, like we can do the tax work easier, more efficiently.
Yeah. So you don't have this huge log jam of last minute people running through the door with all of the stuff trying to hit that deadline. You're only doing tax returns for the people that are working with you every month.
Yes.
Yeah. And so tell me what we talked about the perception that people had of you not being a CPA. Yeah. Now that you're in that role and you're running the business, do you think that perhaps there are some advantages to the fact that you're not a CPA?
I definitely think so. If you want to be the glass half full guy, I think because I can't get sucked into the day-to-day, it keeps me working on the business. It makes me, curious, and I have to do a lot of listening and like take it slow because I'm not coming from a different CPA firm saying like, well, this is how we did it over there. And my strong suits in sales and marketing play well, because most accounting firms, it's a grind to get it up to like 750K in revenue. And then from there to 5 million, it's really like, can you recruit, keep your systems tight? And if so, like it'll keep growing, but a lot of firm owners kind of stall out because they maybe struggle with recruiting or struggle to delegate. So I think the phase that I bought it in is definitely like plays to my strengths. And when I meet some of our clients, they're kind of like, interesting story. And new prospects, they ask me like, would I be working with you? So I'm quick to tell them that, I'm not the one that will be doing their accounting or doing their taxes.
So would you say that the management of Appletree is more sales and marketing focused, growth focused than maybe another accounting firm might be?
Now, yes. I mean, my goal is to take it from 1.2 million revenue to 5 million within 5 years. And we're growing pretty well. Yeah, I think we had a really strong team and really great system. So I want to just keep that and keep building upon that.
We've got a couple interesting comments here. Ruben says that he's running into the same issue. It looks like he's looking at buying a similar kind of firm that you bought. A lot of firms I have looked at are heavy on tax prep and light on bookkeeping. In my experience, I find a lot of CPA firms that do accounting work and tax planning work will often have a sort of a constellation of very small bookkeeping firms they kind of refer people to, and they don't typically do it in-house, or not many that I've run into have. SageMark Group says, from a license standpoint, what's legally required to run and own the business if the owner is not a CPA or a tax person? This is interesting because this can vary by jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And I ran into this just the other day when I was talking with someone. For example, in Quebec, only pharmacists can own a pharmacy, right? And so there's a lot of different kinds of industries around the world, depending on the state, country, et cetera, that you're in, that do have limitations about who can be the owner.
Yeah.
Are there any jurisdictions that in the States that require that a CPA own a CPA firm?
Yes. I think Texas is like the most tight on the regulation, that I think it has to be a 51% owner. But in most other states, if you really look at, you really have to dig in on the details, because a lot of firms hang their shingle as a professional services firm or a bookkeeping firm or tax prep. If you're not doing audit, you're fine in most states being a non-CPA owner.
Interesting. Okay. So it has to do with the assurance work and
Yeah.
probably the insurance that those people would have to carry, and sort of other regulatory hurdles. Once
Yeah.
you remove that part of it, it's kind of more open for people to participate.
Yeah. And, previous owner, to his credit, he kind of thought that from day one. So he called the firm Appletree Business Services. He never wanted to call it, XYZ CPA or, Bob's CPA firm. Right. So it depends on the state, but if it's just bookkeeping, like, you're totally fine. So if there's tax prep involved, you just want to, dig in on the licensing and see if audit is being done, or see what that state says.
Okay.
And in some states, you might need like a minority partner,
Okay. And so, have you ever worried, that concern about if the CPA quits, who's going to do the work? Have you ever been concerned about that, or have you always had a strong and a deep enough bench that you've got overlap as far as expertise amongst your employees?
It's always been a worry, in the search, and also, once I bought Appletree, and we were understaffed going straight into tax season, and they're like, okay, don't change anything, don't do anything until after tax season. That was like the mantra. Like, we don't do anything new, we don't hire people, and we lost a senior tax preparer, and we lost a bookkeeper. Now I think we're much better at like hiring ahead for capacity, but he was in the habit of like really like, running it at capacity. So it's always a concern, it's such a people intensive business, and those relationships matter, even if it is productized well.
One of the things about a business like this is it's very similar to, a law firm, or even to something like a beauty salon, where if people go into that business every day and they're always getting service from the same person, that person decides to leave and open their own shop, or the lawyer decides to leave and open their own office. Some of the people that are used to dealing with that person could then follow that person out. Have you seen that happen? Because it's got to happen in the world of accounting.
Yes. What you can try to do to protect yourself if you're buying a business is buy something with multiple services, right? So if they have bookkeeping, tax, payroll, maybe even bill pay in a firm, and their tax person leaves, like, you've got a better shot at like keeping them. But it's definitely a risk, like, knock on wood, we've had good retention, but that will always be there.
So you come from a sales and marketing background. Can you tell us how things changed at Appletree under your first year of ownership?
Yeah, so we grew about 60% top line. The team grew from
60?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So the team grew from 12 to about 21.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been
so
great.
So for a lot of companies, if you were going to have that kind of growth, there would be the problem of financing the growth ahead of the cash flows. what do you attribute your ability to have that kind of growth? Is it because you had extra cash you could use or is it because of the model you have of the subscription?
The model is great. Like,
yeah.
We bill up front. So you get a little bit of help, right? Like here we are in January. Like if somebody was to sign on, there might be catch up bookkeeping fees. And then, we're billing them. We'd bill them in January for like February's bookkeeping, right? So you get, good working capital there. But yes, you still have to go pay for marketing, pay for salaries before people are kind of profitable. So accounting is generally, a good one, but I had some unfair advantages as well. I brought consulting work into the business right away that helped increase revenue and covered, debt service or cash flow.
Your own consulting work apart from what the accounting business was doing?
Yes.
Okay.
So that was always my vision, is like to add on a consulting side. We help people with like strategic planning. It's almost like a little bit of like maybe what a fractional CFO might do, or a little bit of like EOS implementation, or maybe a little bit of like
are you doing a lot of that work?
There's 3 of us. Yeah. So
okay.
I do like, I don't know. I have, 7 or 8 clients. And then there's 2 other team members that have joined the consulting side.
So when you looked at Appletree, you were looking at the existing client list as this ready-made prospect list for these new consulting services.
That was one thing that I was overly optimistic on. So I thought it would be an easy cross-sell, and it hasn't been. We've only cross-sold 2 people into consulting. Wow. Okay. We've picked up a lot more new consulting, and then the consulting definitely feeds the accounting, and vice versa. I think we'll continue to get some, from the previous base, but it's been a little slower go there. And what I always kind of saw as a vision was like 3 kind of phases of client engagement, like know your numbers, grow your firm, live a legacy, right? So like know your numbers is accounting, right? Like get your numbers down. Consulting is like grow it. And then live a legacy is like, we're either going to help you get ready to sell, or we'll help you like put a GM in place and get you out of the day-to-day. And, there might only be like 10 or 20% of the accounting clients that will want to pay up for those next 2 phases. But I always pictured that as like a really, ideal service mix for some of these small businesses.
Wow. Just a reminder, we got a whole bunch of people that are watching live. Hit the like button. It really does help the algorithm, and it helps with people being able to discover this content as we move along.
And it helps my ego. So
Patrick's ego needs you to hit the like button. Mine too. That's why I thought of it.
Can I circle back? So there were 2 questions you mentioned, and one person said, I see tax prep and light bookkeeping.
Yeah.
So if you're,
this is Ruben's question.
Ruben, happy to chat with you. But what I would look for is anyone that has like at least $10,000 to $20,000 a month in bookkeeping is worth looking at. So, I don't know what size deal you're looking for, but if there's 10 to 20K there, like you can grow that, or there's probably, 1 or maybe 2 people that do bookkeeping. If it's less than that, then it's not really a focus, So that's what I would say about that.
We've got some ego work happening right now on the show.
Thank you. Thank you
very much, Nuvi. And so you mentioned when you started off, the client base was all pretty much in New England. You said Maine, New Hampshire, and a little bit of Massachusetts, I think. Has that changed now over the last year?
Yes. Now we serve nationwide. There were 2 things I really butted heads with the owner. Like we get along well, he's still involved, but recruiting methods was one, and where to service clients was the other. And he was like, you don't want to do that. Like, we don't know all these other states. And I talked to a lot of other firm owners before I made the decision to like market and accept clients in other states. And, after talking to a lot of people in the industry, and I think a lot of people that are smart, I weighed the pros and cons. I said, okay, we're going to service these other states. And it's been great for growth. And frankly, I think that's where accounting is going. Like, the small business owner cares, like, are you going to be responsive? Do you know my industry? Are you easy to work with? Right. Whereas like previously it was like, who's nearby? and
Yeah.
they were generalists, right? And I think now the flooring guy in California, like if you know how to speak his language and like what his margin should be, and you know what CRM he uses, and like you can say, yes, I have 5 other flooring companies, and like we can, solve your problems, then that's the way the world is going.
Well, that raises an interesting question then. Did you ever think of niching down into specific target industries?
Yes, there was a dental specific one that I sent an LOI on that I really liked, and I just got blown out of the water by a lot of other offers and PE. We've niched down into service companies, so like kind of like professional services in the trades, right? So like web design creators, content marketers, like course creators, and then the other would be like flooring, plumbing, landscaping, those types of folks. I've made 2 other acquisitions, and the third one was a very specialized firm that just served course creators and online coaches.
Were these tuck-in businesses that were in the same line that you just folded them into Appletree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so after you made the first acquisition, was the issue that you weren't a CPA ever an issue again?
Not really. This is like super minor,
Yeah, proof is in the pudding when it's the only one.
But no.
Yeah, cool. And so another interesting thing is that, you talk about marketing and sales. You actually are you're pushing things with Appletree. You're actually sponsoring the Boss Up virtual conference that's coming up here soon. I've got a page here I'm going to share on the screen. But
everybody register.
What tell us about that? Because I'm one of the speakers there.
Yes.
And so are you. And then my Christmas Eve special, I was talking with Mike Finger and Ted Leverett as well, who are going to be there. What made you decide to participate in doing something like this?
It looked like a really good speaker lineup. I like the community. You and I met at another conference over the summer. I sponsored that, and I liked it and liked the people there. So I just felt like it was a good opportunity for us to contribute to the community and get in front of some potential clients who might be buying a business.
What are you going to be speaking about during that?
I'm speaking about accounting considerations, pre and post close.
Okay, and this is going to be February 16th and 17th. It's entirely online, and it's free for people to attend. And in the show notes on YouTube, I put the link for people to be able to click and go and sign up, and yeah, please come and join us there. It's going to be great. We are now at the end of the fiscal year. What kinds of things in general for all the business people out there that are watching should be some of the things that we're looking out for with respect to our bookkeeping and tax planning, et cetera, as we get into the tax filing season?
I think the best thing you can do is like try to get your info to your accountant, that they ask for. So if they're, right now in the US, we're working on 1099. So hopefully you've been, issuing W-9s to folks and tracking that and tracking your vendors that you paid at least $600 to. You got to get W-2s out the door if you have payroll. And then from there, in terms of tax planning, it's a little late. You might have done some of that at year end, but you can still do some, retirement contributions to reduce your taxable income.
If someone's having a really great year and they can see that they're having a really great year and they're starting to worry about taxes and they're starting to wonder if there's things that they can do, when in the year is that conversation apropos?
We do it in November. So we talk to people in November, and, we're kind of keeping an eye on the profits throughout the year, and then trying to give them a tax estimate and then seeing what we can do. I don't know if that's the norm. I think a lot of people have a kind of wait and see reactive conversation, at least in the States. But ideally you're doing that in November, December.
We've got a follow-up question here from Sage Mark. Can you share how you price and sell your work on a subscription level versus a transaction level? And Sage Mark hit the like button. So
thank you, Sage Mark. So we, our average client is probably like $800 per month. And that would include the bookkeeping for the business tax return, and the owner's personal taxes. What we do to price it, we have like a pricing calculator. We're looking at basically the complexity and the volume. So, I'll look at like, how many transactions they're doing every month. I'll look at, how many loans are there, or how many credit cards they're using. Is there a CRM? Is it cash or accrual? Is there payroll involved? Yeah, those are kind of the main drivers. And then we have a bookkeeping fee, and we kind of have a tax fee that we amortize, and then like we turn it into a monthly fee. And for some clients, we also do their payroll in-house as well. So.
And one of the things I'd like to highlight is that, from a business owner's point of view, you might be thinking, hey, moving to a monthly subscription model is really great because all the cash flow bumps are kind of worked out of this. But what is interesting is that there's actually value in this for the customers too, because they're not suddenly facing, a big expense that occurs, abnormally, once a year. I remember when I used to own apartment buildings, I had a contractor who would mow the lawns in the summer and do the snow removal in the winter. And he always wanted like to get 2 checks in the spring and 2 checks in the fall. And I said to him one year, why don't you just give me a quote for both services and give me a monthly bill, because I collect my rents monthly. I'd like to have a monthly bill. It would be easier for me. And then a year later, I spoke with him and I said, so how many people do you have on your new monthly plan? Joking around with him. And he was like, well, just you. You're the only one who asked. And I was like, oh my God, man. Like, dude, I'm sure every other landlord would love to move to that kind of program.
Yeah.
But he didn't see how it was actually of value to me,
Yeah.
because my cash flow is monthly, but every other small business's cash flow is a monthly basis. To be able to have a charge every month is certainly more palatable than maybe a great big expense once a year.
Right. Totally. It's a bummer he didn't take your advice, but yeah. And it's also, for us, this is new to me, but like the retaining and recruiting of staff is like my biggest challenge, because there's so much burnout in accounting. There's so many people that are leaving the industry. There's less and less students coming in. So I have to like protect my team, right? So like getting the monthly subscription is almost a check to say like, are you invested in like this type of relationship? And if you're not, like, it's okay, so it's almost like a vetting process to say like, here's the way we do it. We will not do tax only. If you want to work with us, to monthly subscription, we'll take great care of you, and we'll be more proactive than you're probably what you're used to. So it's kind of a win-win.
What kind of revenue would the typical customer that's paying you about $800 a month be doing?
If you had to pick an average, that's probably like a $1.5 million revenue business. But we work with people like, 200K up to 20 million. But, the vast majority are probably like $1 to $4 million revenue companies.
And you look at the complexity of what people are doing. So like a consulting firm that's creating one-off invoices for each project they're doing that all have to be reconciled with the bank deposits is obviously different than someone who has a retail store with using Square or something where everything can just be dumped across pretty automatically, and it just has to be verified, and look for the things that don't match, right? I mean, so this is part of your calculation as far as what you charge people.
Yes. And the way our firm is set up is also different from other accounting firms. So all of our team is paid on a percentage of what work they complete. So, the tax manager and the bookkeeper. So if I price something wrong, like, I'm going to hear about it, they're going to be like, you underpriced this, like, this one's a bunch of work, so I definitely have to try to really be conscious of scoping that right. But you never know, sometimes like we had one, I thought I scoped it right and I didn't pay close enough attention to the inventory, and there was like, thousands of SKUs and their inventory is a mess. And, so.
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't want to get out there and have to like get into that work. That's a whole other world.
Yeah.
Accounting and inventory management. You didn't say, but did you borrow money when you bought the business? And if you did the fact that you weren't a CPA have any impact on what the bankers thought?
Yes, the bankers. Some banks were, cautious. It was a $1.3 million purchase price. I did about 10% down with my cash, or I did 10% down with my cash, 75% SBA, and then 15% seller note. One of the banks, I'll give you a long answer. So that other deal that died at the 11th hour was because like the bank kind of like got much more conservative at the very end. They like spooked and like got weird about the deal. So when I found the next one, I was like, I'm not going to let that happen again. So I like courted a bunch of banks, and I had like 5 banks, and I drove them all to a commitment letter, and they were all like bothered that I was shopping them, but like whatever, like, they all complain about client concentration. Like I can't afford bank concentration and like the same shit to happen, like deal with it, So I was transparent. I was like, look, I'm talking to a number of banks. Like I need to know if you can close, and I need to know like if I can get a line of credit. Right. So the list went from like 5 a commitment letter to down to 2. And like the second one towards the end, they were like kind of wanting a minority CPA partner. And then they let go of that. Like once they kind of saw the makeup of the firm and the tax managers that were staying on. So some banks did have that concern. Some banks didn't. So if you're looking at a deal, I would just say all banks are not created equal, and make sure that like you really, check out your SBA lenders. Or
in the SBA has rules that say you have to have some kind of applicable business experience, but you had a background in small business consulting and working with small businesses and sales and marketing in the small business world. So like, if you look at the skill set of an owner of a firm like this, you're checking like all these boxes. It's basically just this one thing that is absent, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Do you think the bankers look at the business plan? I don't, but I think they just look at financials, but maybe they do.
It's a good question. I think they look at the financials, and if the financials look okay, they might look at some of the other parts,
Yeah.
right? Because that's probably the easiest way to dismiss it, right? If it doesn't work in the numbers, it doesn't matter what the words say. But yeah, okay. So do you think some of these people actually moved along with the deal without really realizing that you weren't a CPA?
No, they knew, but I just think like 90% of what they look at is like the tax returns, and they just go, okay, can it cover the debt service?
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe I'm like not giving them enough credit, but I just think like they don't, because I had a few calls with underwriters, and like I could tell that they just didn't look at my business plan at all, So
we got an interesting question here from another Boss Up speaker who happens to be tuned in on LinkedIn. This is Eric, who's an M&A attorney down in Florida. How did your mentality shift from the first acquisition to the subsequent ones? Was it easier as you started to do them?
Is this broadcast on LinkedIn? I didn't even realize. I thought it was like a Facebook broadcast. Okay.
It's LinkedIn and Twitter too.
Got it. Cool. How has my mentality shifted? So originally, before I bought the first firm, I was like, okay, I'm going to roll up a bunch of accounting firms and like, just be like the sweaty startup that buys a bunch of storage. Like I'm going to be that guy of accounting and, improve them and like keep rolling. And then after the first one, I was just like, whoa, like I realized that that's not possible. And I was at a conference in May, and in my head, I was talking to somebody else, and I was like, I'm not doing any more deals this year unless it's a perfect fit. And then lo and behold, like a couple more came across my plate. Eric helped me, SMB Law Group helped me with the third one, and they were awesome. And I've seen it now, like you really have to make sure that the firm matches up in terms of like the type of clients that they serve and the pricing model and even the tools, frankly, because if you're an ultra tax shop and somebody else uses like some other tax software, just that alone is going to be a nightmare to integrate,
It's a whole integration puzzle. Once you've got it, you don't want to keep it separate. You're not going to realize any kind of benefit unless you can really have everything conform into the way that you're doing business, or or conform your shop into what they're doing if it happens to be better. It's about figuring out what works better and then sorting that stuff all out. What were the comparable sizes of the other transactions? As far as, did you swallow a whale, or was it a smaller business?
No, so the first one was 1.2 million in revenue. The second one was like only 150K in revenue, but it was like carbon copy of our firm. It was like in the same association, same tools, same pricing model. It was easy. And then the third one was about 800K in revenue. And some of it was different, like we were primarily QuickBooks Online, they were on Xero. But I really liked the niche. I liked the product offering that they had. And I think that market is going to continue to grow a lot with course creators and online coaches.
When you say they were on Xero, you mean they were serving their clients who were using Xero, or they were using it internally?
Both.
Okay. And so this is interesting because as you have sort of like your major packages of software out there, really, do you by necessity have to be servicing people on all the platforms, or are there some accounting firms that just say, no, we're a Sage shop, we only work with people on Sage, or something like that?
There are some that will only work with one. I think you can build a big business just being QuickBooks Online. And there's some people that might decide to niche down into Xero, because Xero is growing. Now, we're QuickBooks and Xero, but it's hard, right? Like if you're a Mac person and then you go to use a PC, that's an analogy, right? It's like different layout, different design, like different logic to it. So you just have to be cautious with it because it can really hurt your efficiency.
And how do you deal with it? Is everyone trained in all of them, or do you have a couple of Xero people
so
work on those files?
Part of why I like the third acquisition was some of the team was staying on. So like the team that knows Xero, is staying on. And then as we've continued to grow, we're training like 2 of our new staff accountants on Xero. So that's the plan. So previously, if a prospect came to me and they're on Xero, I wouldn't have tried to like keep them on Xero or work with them. We would have tried to convert them to QuickBooks Online. But now, like I just leave that person on Xero.
How sticky do you find people are? Like are customers really committed to their software, or do you find a lot of them are just using what their previous bookkeeper put them on? Are they really?
Yeah, they're just using what the previous bookkeeper had them on, or maybe like they might have just used QuickBooks because it's well known and like they might be used to invoicing on it. In an accounting acquisition, I think 20% churn is probably the average, like first year. We've done better than that, knock on wood, but yeah. So I think the stickiness is really around like the service delivery. It's not the software.
Yeah. Awesome. And so looking forward, what do you see in the future? More tuck-ins? I mean, obviously you're going to keep trying to grow organically, or is there anything else?
No, and like here we are, we're, I don't know, definitely nothing more until next summer. The nice thing is now, like we can be pickier and we're growing well organically, that we don't have to do acquisitions. But if there's others that fit, it's definitely like a great growth lever, so the goal still is like to get to 5 million within 5 years. And we're on pace for that. So we'll see if it's organic from here on out, or maybe 1 or 2 more acquisitions.
Well, this has been awesome, Patrick. If people want to learn more or want to sell their CPA firm to you, how do they reach you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. Feel free to catch me there. I love connecting with people in this community and appreciate you having me.
Well, one last question. How important is the personal branding, the fact that you appear, in interviews like this, and that you're active on platforms like Twitter and LinkedIn, et cetera? How important do you think that is in your success doing these acquisitions?
It's been massive. Absolutely massive. Even like I had a blog for years, and even in my search, like people looked at that and they read it, and then being active on Twitter like led to a lot of connections people, sending meals my way. And then we've picked up a lot of clients from small business Twitter and the SMB community. So it's been huge.
Yeah. Sam Turner says, congratulations on the first year. I like your growth plan. Thanks, Sam, for contributing. And I do too. And so once again, what's that URL for the business?
Appletreebusiness.com. So we call it Appletree for short, but if you're searching, just Appletree Business Services is going to take you to the right place.
Awesome. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. And I'm going to say goodbye to everyone with a few words from this year's channel sponsor. Special thanks go out to today's video sponsor, Mark Willis of Lake Growth Financial. Mark helps people better manage their personal wealth and business finances through the Bank on Yourself insurance strategy. This is something I've done personally and I've gotten lots of positive feedback from people I've worked with over the years. Go to newbankingsolution.com to find a playlist of all the interviews I've done with Mark and to learn more about the advantages of these programs. While there, sign up to arrange a conversation about what this solution might look like for you. So, how can you learn more about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium-sized businesses? Easy. Head over to my blog site at davidcbarnett.com. You'll find hundreds of articles and videos, all for free. You'll find links to my books and online courses, and you can sign up for my email list and get emails covering topics that interest you and be notified of new videos. This episode of Small Business and Deal Making is brought to you by SMBpodcastnetwork.com. The network is a collection of podcasts and shows from around the internet which focus on bringing you interviews with amazing guests who share actionable advice, ideas, and information for small and medium-sized business owners and entrepreneurs. Visit www.smbpodcastnetwork.com to find more great shows and easily subscribe to be notified of new episodes. It's a great way to discover quality content. And if you've discovered us today via the network, then I hope you're enjoying the show and will consider subscribing directly so you never miss any one of our great episodes.